What is up, everybody? My name is Dr. Pittman. Welcome to episode 20 of the Power Ranger podcast. Glad to be here. Glad to be back with you guys. Let's meet my co-host on the right. We have my man JWR.
Howdy, willkommen bienvenue. Good to be back for now, at least. It's been a while, but for the time being, we're back with another show. Uh, I actually no, I I thought of something clever, some kind of clever segue, but it's not coming to me at the moment. Although I will say that I feel like now is good of a time as any to say Happy Power Month. For those of you who don't know, Power Month, basically as coined by Hasbro, is basically a commemoration of the month in which Power Rangers first premiered in August of 1993.
Oh yeah, it was August, wasn't it?
Yes, August 28th, 1993.
It's so weird. I'm used to it. I'm used to seasons starting at the beginning of the year.
Yeah.
But anyways, yes, we have my other co-host, Dragon Rare X9.
Greetings, everyone. Glad to see you again.
And JWR, would you mind introducing our topics?
Sure. I guess bouncing off my point about Power Month. We we have like a minor minor news, but still news that I felt felt was worth mentioning. So, if you will give me one quick minute to share my screen.
All right.
Here we go. Yeah. Okay, so on the official Power Rangers Instagram, they announced Power Week, which is supposed to take place from August 22nd to 28th, which also happens to fall on the same weekend as Power Morphicon in Pasadena. So basically, now nothing is confirmed yet, and I wouldn't be surprised if what we get is okay. Basically, I'm not expecting that we're going to get any big major news that week. We probably could, but most likely it's probably going to be saved for announcements of toys and merchandise. And speaking of which, they actually so in the video, they actually announced two new figures from Wave 12 of the Lightning Collection. Give me one quick second. So they announced Lost Galaxy Green and Mighty Morphin and Adam as Mighty Morphin Black. Again, minor, nothing major, but still just felt worth mentioning. So I am going to here are shots of the Lost Galaxy Green figure.
Always nice to see.
Yes,
that is nice. Very nice.
And here is Adam as Mighty Morphin Black.
Ooh, yeah,
what's up with his weapon there?
Well, that's the power axe.
No, it's not. It is. No, it is not. It looks. It's a. It is not.
I thought it was the power axe. We know that's the power blaster. But...
Right. It's
a fire hydrant.
It's definitely not the regular pistol thing, the blade blaster or whatever they call it.
Yeah, he comes with the blade blaster, but the other weapon I'm kind of drawing a blank on. I mean, it's been a while since I've seen Mighty Morphin. Since I've seen Mighty Morphin, I think season 2 or 3, but I don't recall the episode in which he used this.
His axe can be used as a cannon to fire from.
Yeah. Yes.
But also, it's a two-handed thing. It never holds it like that.
Yeah, it's not this.
I think I'm decently familiar with what the power axe looks like, and that's not.
The action figure looks nice, but the weapon, the blade blaster,
interesting.
Honestly, it kind of looks like a thing you use to spray like weed killer around the fence.
Yeah, it does.
I mean, got a Mighty Morphin yard landscaping, I guess.
Duh. Mighty Morphin Landscapers.
Mighty Morphin Lancer. That's a good one.
Oh,
Hey,
man.
destroying giant robots don't pay the bills.
Right.
Well, yeah.
Right, of course. Gotta make money. Gotta make money and pay for all their pay to keep the lights on somehow in the power command center.
Well, there you go.
Honestly, this is the big tangent, but I just remember there was an episode of Jew Ranger where the Rangers kind of wanted to get jobs so they'd have some spending money, and it was revealed that their mentor had been selling off ancient priceless artifacts to pay for everything. That was nice. Anyway.
All right.
Anyways, back to our main topic for this episode. So, I guess our main topic for the episode being a new segment. Well, it's not really a new segment, but a new name for the segment that we're calling Ranger Rewind. Courtesy your trademark me.
Ranger Rewind. Let's go.
That's a cool name.
And for this episode of Ranger Rewind, we thought we're doing a commentary on the Wild Force two-parter Reinforcements from the Future, which last week actually celebrated its 20th anniversary.
Okay, so as a brief summation, are we jumping into reinforcements, or is there something else we need to do first?
We could do some. We could do some background.
Yeah. I was just going to briefly explain the premises of Time Force and Wild Force.
Yeah, sure, we could do that.
Okay, so the season that this episode takes place in is Wild Force, and they're teaming up with the previous set of Rangers, Time Force. Wild Force is about a bunch of nature-themed Rangers who spend all their time on a floating island called the Animarium, and they're trying to defeat a bunch of pollution-themed monsters called orgs. Also, there's a thing with Cole and his parents, but none of that really factors into this episode, so I'll spare everyone. As for Time Force, I have to actually go a bit deeper in that because it is relevant to the episode. A fugitive from the year 3000 came back to the year 2000, and 4 Rangers came back to stop him, and they recruited the ancestor of the previous Red Ranger who is dead, except it turns out later that he's not dead somehow. Not important. Point is, people from the future fighting a fugitive mutant guy. They eventually catch him at the end. They don't beat him. They have a fight. He's kind of kicking their asses.
I know. Yeah. Okay.
But
yeah.
Basically, he surrenders when his daughter gets badly injured by his own hand. Ranzic, the fugitive, his love for his daughter has been one of his most consistently good traits through the season, so it was a satisfying ending. Also, the Red Ranger from the past, Wes, had a romance thing going on with the team leader, Pink Ranger Jin, that kind of ended bittersweetly because she had to go back to the future.
It did.
And is there anything? Oh, I guess Eric is pretty important. In Time Force, Wes's father starts a sort of private police force that later goes somewhat more public, called the Silver Guardians, because they're in Silver Hills. And basically his top enforcer, Eric, gets a hold of the Quantum Morpher and becomes the Quantum Ranger. It's an untraditional 6 Ranger setup, but it's actually pretty cool.
It is.
Eric has serious beef with Wes for most of the season, but they get over it in the final episode, and they're all good now. After the series ends, Wes ends up joining the Silver Guardians under Eric's command.
Yes. Quick side note. Eric's counterpart in the Sentai that Time Force is based on, Time Ranger Naoto, his counterpart in the Sentai died. I believe that's what they originally were. That's what the writers wanted to do with Time Force, but understandably, the network was against that decision. So
And like
instead of
you could absolutely see where he was going to be killed off. It
yeah,
wouldn't have required much changing.
right. Also, something kind of interesting.
I'm glad he
So
lived, though, if I'm honest.
yeah. Also, kind of interesting that there was no official team up between Gal Ranger, the something that Wild Force is based off of, and Time Ranger, and yet I think we mentioned it in our commentary of the Samurai's Journey that there was a crossover between Gal Ranger and Hurricaneger, but not a crossover in Power Rangers. Just something
Life
I thought interesting.
life is funny like that.
Yeah.
In this case,
Here you
it
are.
means basically all the footage for reinforcements from the future is original stuff.
Yes.
All right, hey guys. Before y'all say continue on, just want to mention two things. One, uh, Power Month Power Week will start on my birth week,
Oh,
August 24th to
cool.
the August 22nd to the 28th. So I'll be 21 this year. That's the
Oh,
first.
Awesome.
nice.
Thank you. All right, that's the first thing. Second thing is I'm I'm checking on the live chat to make sure there's no bots in the server, no spots in the chat. So that
Mhm.
way, making sure.
Good.
Go
Good.
ahead, continue. Go ahead and continue.
Okay.
All right. I mean that's about the gist of our little tangent before we start diving into the episode.
Let me think. Taylor gets enough focus. She's Wild Force Yellow. She was kind of the leader before Cole showed up, and she's from the Air Force, probably the most hardline member of the team. I think that might be about it.
Yeah, that's about it. Also, I guess of note in the episode right before reinforcements from the future part one, Cole gets his battleizer.
Ah, oh, you
Okay,
know what? We should at least explain Cole's deal, as it
okay,
comes
yeah,
up at least once.
yeah.
He was, without getting into his parents and all that, he was raised in the jungle in like South America, I think, and eventually he just kind of, I forget if he boats or he swims up to California, where he joins up with the other Rangers. He's kind of a naive guy at first. He has the power to like read people's hearts and all that, and basically he wants to believe the good in everyone, which from what I understand the season does challenge very well with a straight up monstrous villain.
Oh yeah, yeah.
But that's a whole different thing. Point is, Cole's kind of that kind of guy, and we're going to be talking about Cole, so now you know.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. So with that, I think we can just jump right in.
Jump right in, guys. Go ahead.
So the episode opens with Taylor speeding down the driveway after I think she said after she either bought or got either bought the new car. I think she said she buys it, but in either case, the episode begins with her speeding down the hallway, texting while driving.
Is that why she's in Silver Hills? To buy a car? I was wondering.
Possibly. Actually,
She's not only speeding, she's talking on the phone while driving.
Yeah. And I would like to point out the irony of the environmentally friendly ranger team using gas guzzling cars, but I don't know, maybe it was like an older model or a hybrid. We'll just
I mean, forget the car. They regularly use gas guzzling motorcycles to drive around on.
that too.
Like, look, the Zords I can buy as being like solar powered or some crap, but these are like straight up combustion motorcycles.
Yeah. I don't know.
Don't get me started on the one episode where Max is polluting the lake with bottles.
Right. Yeah, we forgot to. Oh, wait, no, we did kind of cover that, but we did cover it in the intro. But in case it wasn't obvious, Wild Force is the environmentalism is a pretty major recurring theme in Wild Force.
Even by the standards of Power Rangers.
Right. Although I have to imagine that has something to do with the showrunner sticking closely to Gao Ranger.
Mm-hmm.
Any Anyways, her speeding catches the attention of a police officer who gives her a ticket, and then we later find out that the officer in question is Eric.
And I actually like the scene after. Well, first the whole scene is just glorious. The
Mm-hmm.
little interactions, and then Eric goes back to his car, and we see that Wes is sitting with him, wearing the old red beret that Eric used to. And it doesn't really linger on the moment, but really quickly we can get a sense of what Wes has been up to since Wild Force ended, since Time Force ended.
Right, and
And for
right,
this kind of reunion episode, that's really nice to see.
right. Especially like I don't. It's small, but like I love the little the close up like the little close up or zoom in on Wes when it cuts back to them in the car.
Hmm.
It's so it's so like it's cheap. It's cheesy and like in the best possible way. I
It,
don't,
it was pretty good, yeah.
right. So anyway, so after this, they get a there's an alert on the police scanner of a. No, wait, no. Before that, way
Yeah,
before that.
but there's a nighttime scene
Right,
where the two comic relief or okay, just to clear this up, the bad guys of Force are orgs. The bad guys, kind of Time Force are mutants. We're
yes.
we're gonna cover that in detail later, but just for so the terminology is clear. So these
So yeah,
so the comic relief orgs show up. They meet these three. We can only assume they're orgs at this point, but they're big, they're scary. There is like no music in this scene for a while. And
right.
it's just so weird. One of them just smashes the top of a car and and this series usually has music like all the time, so the lack of it was striking.
Right. And it's not the first time it occurs in the episode. But
Really?
right. Right. But like anyways, I don't know if we touched upon this, but the comic relief orgs in question are the master orgs, two generals, Jindrax and Toxica.
Who don't show back up in this episode, actually. They're
Yeah.
just here to be really indignant that these new orgs are not taking orders from them.
Right.
And to establish that they're very powerful, because like Toxica's horn, they all have horns on their foreheads, and
Yes.
hers is glowing very brightly. And Jindrax is like, "Wow, I've never seen your horn glow that brightly. These must be really strong."
So um so in this the scene in question involves Jindrax trying to recruit these strange looking orgs, and through long story short, there's a things get lost in translation, and instead of joining them, the monsters in question basically tell Jinjax and Toxica to get stuffed. Proceed, and then the book ending the scene by basically tossing them off the bridge.
I think this might actually be funnier in retrospect when we later find out that these orgs are perfectly capable of speaking English.
Oh, they are.
So
Yeah, they're
clearly they just weren't bothering with these guys, but they
right.
understood every dismissive thing Jindrax said.
Right. Like we can't show it because probably because of copyright reasons and because it's a podcast, but like
Uh,
you could like I don't know why, but like I always got the impression that like that their faces are static, but you could just see it. You could almost see or feel like the orcs were like, who are these clowns? Like there's
they
just
manage some really good stuff out of the suit actors sometimes.
Right, right. But anyway, the next morning, the silver guardians get a call from the orgs. Basic get a this
The orgs are attacking someplace or another, and the Silver Guardians are called in to do something about it.
yes. Unsurprisingly, the finest in Silver Hills are not all that effective against the rampaging orgs.
The
So
enforcers will handle this.
right,
Sorry.
so oh no, it's fine. So Wes and Eric decide to bring out the big guns and morph. This also this also does not appear to go. This also does not go well, and the two are forced to retreat.
Or before they retreat, the Wild Force Rangers actually show up.
Yeah. No, 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 no. I mean, no. I mean, like.
Hmm?
I mean, no. I meant that Wes
Oh,
and
the
Eric.
two of them.
Yeah.
Okay. You're
Right.
right.
Fortunately, though, they are saved when the Wild Force Rangers show up, and after the monsters retreat, there's a moment where all the Rangers demorph, and then no, no, okay. First, Wes and Eric demorph, and then there's a moment where Taylor remembers Eric as the officer who gave her a ticket that morning.
Honestly, Taylor and Eric just have a surprising amount of chemistry this entire two-parter, and
They
it's so
do.
fun.
They do. There's a I forget when it happens, but the two basically the two basic the God, I lost my train of thought. Okay, so they're introduced to each other. They go their separate ways, and then when the Wild Force Rangers return to the Animarium, there's this hilarious moment where Princess Shayla asks them about what happened, and then
You
like
met other Rangers? Are
yeah,
they nice?
no, to which Max replies, Taylor especially liked the Quantum Ranger, and then I I can't tell what makes me laugh more, like the way in which Max says it, or Taylor's reaction to her to the taunting.
It's just they really do seem to know how to make use of Max as the young member of the group
Yeah,
without it being obnoxious.
right.
Yes, we do.
Lake polluting notwithstanding. No,
And I
I'm going to go over that.
and I heard y'all commenting on one scene where Eric says to Taylor that I want to show you my Q Rex. I was
Oh,
like,
we'll get right. We'll get to that.
We'll get. It's coming up just a little bit.
well,
All
here.
right. So
The first I believe the Wild Force Rangers figure that these aren't normal orgs. The Time Force guys, they actually contact the future because they have the ability to do that.
yes,
And they talk to Trip, the Green Ranger, who tells them there were 3 really powerful mutants that Jin was tracking a while ago, but they lost track of all of them a couple weeks back. How any of them got to the past is never elaborated on, but if something had to be cut short and glossed over, that's fair enough. I don't care how they got to the past, if I'm honest.
right. Trip also in the scene. Trip also reveals that Jen followed the mutants into the future, but they recently lost contact with her.
And Wes is less than thrilled to hear this, as you might imagine.
Right.
Now, after this, the Time Force guys decide to approach the Wild Force Rangers, specifically Taylor, to see about teaming up to handle this problem. And honestly, I just think this shows a remarkable amount of growth on Eric's part, considering how he was last season.
Right. You can tell that he's grown and matured since his first appearance in Time Force because he is he acts he acts in a manner he acts surprisingly he's surprisingly mature. He responds surprisingly maturely when Taylor mockingly says, "Oh, so now you want our help?" Because I guarantee you that if this were like Worlds Apart or Quantum Quest, Eric, the two, yeah, probably would have gone down a bit differently.
Yeah.
Eric was always pretty competent and confident, but his problem last season was that he had a chip on his shoulder and he constantly felt like he had something to prove to himself and to everyone around him.
I mean,
And he
yeah, he
uh,
was confident. He was confident
maybe
in time
perhaps a
for
bit perhaps a bit too much, and I'll elaborate more on that later. You'll
And,
understand what I mean in a second.
and it feels like that chip is gone and he's able to be, confident, competent, maybe a touch adversarial at times, but otherwise he keeps it in check. And
and that's not
he seems like he's in a much better place.
and
Right,
that's, and that's nice. And I like that change. It's a good change for Eric's character development.
right. So Taylor takes the two of them to the animarium, in which in which Eric in which Eric seems either Eric seems both befuddled and a tad bit unimpressed with the animarium itself and the wild swords. There's even okay. So Dante mentioned it earlier, but there's a moment where he
The
sees the
Eagle
eagle
Sword
sword,
comes
to which Eric replies, I forget how the line goes, but something like, "Wait,
It's, it's not,
No. The line was
you should see
uh,
my Q
you
Rex.
should see my Q Rex, and I was like, oh my god.
he knows what he said." He knows
Yeah.
what he said. Anyways,
As an aside, the entire time the Time Force guys look so out of place on the animarium, and I just
right,
kind of love it.
right. It's like it's
Like I want to see more of these Power Ranger team ups where where their aesthetics wildly clash with each other. That's fun.
right. We got I guess a bit of we kind of got a touch of that with a touch of that in the Dino Thunder Ninja Storm team up, at least, or at the very least there was a moment where the moment where Ethan's fanboying out over the ninja streak, right? But
Um, if I'm honest, while it's maybe not the best example in the world, the team up between Lightspeed Rescue and Lost Galaxy had a little bit of that. Well, with Lost Galaxy in their space travel and giant animal zords, compared to the slightly more grounded thing that Lightspeed Rescue had going for it.
right,
In so
or
much, in so much that anything Power Rangers does is grounded.
right, or the scene at the end of the Time Force and Lightspeed Rescue team up where they take the Lightspeed Rescues to the clock tower, to which Joel says something to the likes of, "I thought you guys were from the future. This place looks kind of old."
Joel.
But
Joel's kind of a jerk, but he grows on you.
right, and we love him for it.
Yeah.
Anyways, back to Wild Force.
Yes, back to Wild Force. We're getting all topic here.
Right.
Okay, so in the future, what Lucas, the Blue Ranger, and Trip, the Green Ranger, and Katie, the Yellow Ranger, decide that they're going to need some help for all this. They go and find Nadira, who is the daughter of the former villain Ranzic, who is apparently with some with some vouching from Time Force, is out presumably on parole and is working with children.
Yes.
And considering her last thing in Time Force was suddenly be like she was present to a woman giving birth, and she was just so in awe of the new life and the young child, and suddenly she's like, holy crap, what are we doing?
But one question still remains in my head.
Okay,
What happened to the mother, though?
that's
Uh,
an
Good
excellent
question.
question.
God. I would assume that they found the baby's mother that they found the baby's mother. Although there are other possibilities, but they are a bit they are a little bleak. So we'll just assume that she was able to reunite the baby with its mother.
Yeah,
Yeah,
let's
yeah,
go with that. It's
Yeah.
the kind of, if Lightspeed Rescue had glossed over that, I'd complain, but Time Force is a bit different. So
Right. Okay. Last tangent. I promise. For now, it
okay,
is it is remarkable how there was anything left of Mariner Bay at the end of Lightspeed Rescue.
uh, they
Anyways,
had good infrastructure, I guess.
they must have. Anyway, okay. But anyways,
They go with Nadira to Ranzic's prison cell. And Ranzic, when he's told he has visitors, first thing he sees is his daughter, and his face lights up because, again, for all this guy's faults, he loves his daughter.
right.
So they hug, and there's a nice moment. But then he sees the Time Force guys over there, and he's not upset per se, but there's a sudden tension over it because you're like,
hold
what's
up.
all this about?
Hold on, y'all. Before we continue. Okay, I'm just a casual Power Rangers fan for this information. See y'all doing the podcast about them. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, really appreciate
Almost.
that. Hope you're having a good time.
I hope you're enjoying.
I watched the I Ooze Power Ranger movie a million times.
Classic.
Classic. Anyway, let's
Power
continue on
Rangers.
with Wild Force, you guys.
Broken Skull.
All right. So
That's where that scene ends. They just say, "We need your help," and they cut back
to the
to the Animarium, where we're having a couple little character moments. Max and Danny, the blue and black Wild Force Rangers, are just kind of being their own rambunctious selves.
like yeah.
And they decide to, and they chest bump, but it goes way better for Danny than it does for Max.
Okay.
And Eric and Taylor have a nice little moment where Taylor's like, "Yeah, they kind of drive me nuts sometimes," and Eric's like, "Yeah, I used to think that way about my friends."
Right. There's another neat moment where Cole is riding with Wes and is understandably amazed and surprised that there are other Rangers out there. They're probably. It kind of makes sense that he'd be surprised about the existence of other Rangers because
if there's one character I will not give crap to that to, it's Cole.
Yeah, which makes sense because he spent most of his life outside, not living outside of society and not being caught up on what's been happening since then.
I have to imagine that when Astronema invaded back during Countdown to Destruction, the middle of the jungle probably wasn't their primary target.
Right.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, for those of you not aware, there was a giant global scale alien invasion at the end of Power Rangers in Space. They never bring it up again.
They do. In this.
Okay. They bring it up like once in Lost Galaxy.
Yes. They bring it up once in Lost Galaxy and once here, although we'll get to that.
You know what? We should get to that.
We should, and we most likely will. Anyway,
this little scene with them driving, and Cole's not just it's not just ecstatic at knowing there are other Rangers out there. It ends with him saying, "It's just nice to know that there are other people out there like us."
Right.
And there's a lot you can read into that, and I like it. It's a good
It's
line.
really, I kind of read that as him getting affirmation that he's I view that as affirmation that he's fighting the good fight. That what he's doing is not just having a positive effect in the present, but that there are other people like him who are willing to do the same.
That the Wild Force Rangers aren't some kind of lone bastion of goodness in an apathetic world of cynicism. There
Right.
are others.
Right.
That feels like something that would be really a big source of affirmation for Cole.
Right.
Heck, he's just a friendly guy on top of that.
Right. Yeah. But and anyways, they receive a distress call about the mute orgs attacking again, and the seven of them corner the mutants in that same quarry that we've all gotten to know very intimately over the last 10 years.
Which they actually didn't use for the climax fight. They used for the first I feel second fight really, but you know what I mean.
Right. Okay. So yeah. So there's a line from Eric in which like Cole's talking about how they all have to be careful when they're going up against these guys. To which Eric says, mutants, orgs, they're going down just the same. I'm going somewhere with this. You'll understand when I get to the punchline. Okay. So, anyways, they morph, go up against the mutants. But even when they outnumber the mutants 7-3, it doesn't go well. Yeah, they get their asses kicked, and there's a moment in particular in which so like I timed it literally a minute after Eric's talking about how they'll go down to like any other mutant or org. There's a moment in a scene that never fails to get a laugh out of me. There's a moment where he tries shooting at one of the orgs, only for it to deflect the blast without even looking at him and knocking him on his ass.
The whole choreography for this fight was really great. Like there was another bit where Wes tries shooting one of these guys, but the blast reflects off the guy's body and hits Wes's other hand.
Right.
And meanwhile, Max and Danny are trying to take down one of them, and like he's the Iron Bison. He's kind of the team muscle.
He got
like the Mutant is just walking through his kicks. It really sells the thread.
Right.
Really
like
does.
He's like the thing for me that does it is like he is just casually shrugging off all of Danny's attacks, all while he's just all the while he's just flipping Max over like a soccer ball with the other hand.
Remember when the fight was near starting and that one kicked a boulder at like rocket speed?
Right.
Barely missing Max and Danny and just making a big hole in the side of the mountain.
Well, I mean it grazed them, but yeah, that was that was a moment that stood out for me. Although there is another kind of, I guess, unintentionally funny moment where one of the mute orgs, the one that can fly, just starts spinning in the air and just either slashes or knocks over Alyssa, and I don't know why, but I thought of that scene from Dragon Ball Z where it's like, why didn't you die?
Not the Rangers' best day.
Right. Yeah. Anyways, like as we mentioned, the Rangers get their asses handed them by the mute orgs to the point where Wes is forced to demorph, and we glossed over it earlier, but there was, prior to this moment, there was another scene at night where the mute orgs were meeting and were being recorded by mysterious dark hooded figure who I want to say I want to say that's when who I guess translates their backward speech or whatnot. Anyways, the figure reemerges to say to save Wes, and we find out that the figure in question is actually Jen, who's dressed as a cross between a Jedi Knight and Sarah Connor.
That is what age is this show aimed at again?
Yeah.
I know.
But either way, she was hot in that outfit, though.
I mean, yeah. I mean,
Not denying that.
yeah. Anyways, she joins the fight, starts blasting at the mutants, and
He has a
basically
big-ass gun for some reason.
yeah, and basically gets everybody out. Basically gets everybody out of there, forcing the Rangers to retreat. And
the mute orgs like do a big combination blast. It doesn't hit the Rangers, but just makes one of those big explosions behind them be all dramatic.
right, part of me just thinks they were. Part of me just wants to part of me just think that wants to think that they were just toying with the Rangers, they know that they won the fight, but they just wanted to I guess send them running as one final insult.
Either way, after this, the episode ends with the mute orgs entering a place called the Nexus, which seems to be the Org hideout. They talk with Master Org, reveal that they can actually talk. And that's where the episode ends. They're here to serve him.
Yes. So part 2 immediately picks up with the Rangers returning to the Animarium to lick their wounds, and understandably, Wes has a lot of questions for Jen, such as where she's been since they last saw each other, and why she never contacted him when she returned to the present. But fortunately, before things get a little too awkward, there's a moment where Princess Shayla says, like, there's an owl on the computer.
Like your thing started beeping.
Right. And the owl in question in this case is Circuit, who alerts the Rangers that the time force is on their way to the present.
They don't tell them that Ranzic's in tow, but they find out soon enough.
Right. Although part of me kind of interesting that actually no, that's a good question. You'd think they would have maybe said, by the way, we asked for help. We made a deal to get Ranzic's help.
Maybe don't shoot him as soon as you see him.
Right.
But no, they did it for the drama, and it's
right.
fun. It's a good show.
Right. So later on cut to the next scene where the Rangers from the future arrive on the exact same beach where they first landed in the first episode of Time Force, and where they left at the end of that season. And there's happy reunions abound until Jen notices that Ranzic is with them, but before things get too tense, Cole intervene. First Ranzic basically tells Jen that he's here to help, and then
he wants to make up for a past mistake he's done.
Right, and then Cole senses that Ranzic is basically telling the truth.
That he's speaking from his heart is how he put it.
Yes. this
And it's a good use of coal, if I'm honest.
right.
It as much as this season as this two-parter is effectively carrying over plot elements and resolving things from Time Force, it would have been really easy for the Wild Force Rangers to feel ancillary, like they're just kind of tacked on. But no, they're as much a part of this episode as the Time Force Rangers are, and
Right.
that's one of its biggest strengths.
Right.
Not every crossover manages to balance that all that well.
Right. Anyways, later that night, later that night, both teams basically try to come up with a plan to try to come up with a plan to beat what we later find out are known as mute orgs, and there's lots of great character interactions in this moment, particularly between obviously the stuff between Wes and Jen, but also more scenes between Eric and Taylor.
Yeah, there's a nice scene. Like they're both kind of the workaholics of their group.
Yes, they are.
So seeing them just have a nice little bonding moment over that, and over and this is not in any way an innuendo, over Eric's gun.
Yes.
Imagine.
Yes.
Now, this scene.
And that, yes, I mean, it's a great character moment, and it actually has a payoff later on in the episode.
It does.
It does, and that scene alone, where Jen said to Ranzic that we can't change the past, but we can make a better future. That really
Yes.
really
You're right. I kind of skipped over this in my notes. This is kind of almost a parallel to, oh man, look, at some point we're going to have to talk about Ranzic in depth, and it's not going to be entirely pleasant, and I'm not sure when exactly we want that, but an important point is that Ranzic was in a bad situation in the past, and he was so angry at the world that even like when a doctor tried to help him, he responded to that kindness with borderline murder.
Right.
And like basically Jen is making the point that Ranzic is making the choice that Ranzic failed to make in his past, looking past her own emotions for the sake of making the future better.
Right. Well, okay.
And for reference, like the Red Ranger we thought was killed for a while, Ranzic was the one who killed him. And Alex was at the time Jen's fiance, so she kind of has feelings about Ranzic.
Yes, understandably so.
Justicey feelings, let's call them.
Yes.
So yeah, this is a big moment for her and for Ranzic too.
All right. You already brought it up, so I figure we might as well just rip the Band-Aid off now. In this scene, we learn that the mute orgs are tied to Ranzic's origins Ranzic's origin story. So in a flashback, Ranzic describes his describes a moment in time shortly after he became a mutant, where he sought the help of the mute orgs to either.
Well, they were just orgs at first. They were trapped in stone.
Yes,
and they asked for his help, and he's like, look, you guys are off to beat up humanity. I'm down for that. So he infects them with his mutation, which frees them, gives them new super strong bodies. They respond by giving him the power to pull weapons out of his bones.
Right.
Which is a freaky and kind of cool effect, but
it does.
It is.
The problem. How do even start with this? Mutants are weird. Like you said, Ranzic became a mutant, but I think he was born a mutant.
You're right. Born a mutant, and then that flashback takes place after he is infected, after he is poisoned by Venomark.
Right, that whole detail. base
Okay.
the problem is, and I'm trying to choose my words carefully.
It's the way in which it's the way in which it kind of touches upon it and the implications of it.
Time Force's setting is vague enough and inconsistent enough that you can read a lot of bad things into it.
Yeah.
It
Yes.
wouldn't be exceptionally difficult to read mutants as a race, and the only Ranzic's a criminal, but I guess the problem is the only mutants we ever see in Time Force are all criminals.
Right.
And even if that's not elaborated on, kind of raises questions after a while.
Several
Does
que- several que- more
Yeah.
than a couple of questions, and some of them get very several questions, all of which have rather kind of unfortunate implications. Now, I
and
don't.
like sometimes the mutation isn't even framed like a race thing. Sometimes it's framed like a chronic illness. I remember like his robot butler Frax, who's
Yes.
actually the guy he almost killed. Long
Yes.
story. Who's been trying to get revenge on Ranzic this entire time, just in secret. Basically, Ranzic gets racked with horrible pain that every so often he has to take medicine to keep under control. And Frax is kind of dangling the last little vial of it just out of his grip before smashing it to be cruel. And like, no part of this scene feels like it's an allegory for race that I can tell. Am I missing something?
No, no, no.
No.
The scene very much plays out like an allegory for like either a condition or a term or a disease. But I think the point you're trying to get that I think the point I think what you're trying to get at is that like the way in which the way in which it plays out, it almost sounds like that the mutation is being written as like a as like a as like a as like a stand-in for a disease, for a disease, or some kind of or some kind of condition. And the whole concept of a and the
Mhm.
whole concept of the cure raises is well, yeah, yeah, well, you can. I'm trying to figure out how to the best way to word this. The
See,
implications of it and the way it plays out kind of raise more than a couple of questions, and kind of make it sound like the whole mutant thing is something that's to be like looked down upon or seen as some kind of major negative.
you could, for example, make it see it as something akin to certain high-profile neurodivergencies that certain organizations would be happier if they could simply quote unquote cure.
Right.
Or then, if you look into the parts of Time Force that frame mutation as a race thing, it wouldn't be very hard to see mutants as a sort of second class citizen because the season does nothing to prevent that. All their mutants are villains to be beaten up and captured.
Right, and even those, I forget which episode, but there is a mutant who they froze, whose crime was petty theft.
Yeah, that raises a lot. That
Yeah,
raises a lot of questions.
right,
And like to be clear, some of these are problems that Power Rangers, by its nature, will always struggle with.
right.
You'll have episodes of Power Rangers in space or Lost Galaxy with the B guy or the
Or Loyak or
Loyax.
Loyax, the night dude who Maya ran into in that one episode.
You'll have episodes where the monster of the day really isn't so bad, who
Right,
may not want to be a monster or has other reasons for fighting, or just turns out to be perfectly kind and docile in the end. And
right.
this raises the question, hey, if these so called monsters are capable of not being pure evil, is it maybe kind of weird if every other episode just goes straight back to the killing them is the best solution thing?
Actually funny you mentioned that, because Time Force, I think, is the first season where they don't actually kill or destroy the monster of the week.
So how does that make it worse? Jesus Christ! I mean, like it should make it better, but the way it plays out and the wonky way mutation is used, it comes off as worse.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah. Here's my
You go first.
okay. So yeah, I look. I say this as somebody who who absolutely loves Time Force. I think that I can very much see what they were trying to do, but I can see what they were trying to do, and I think it works better if you just. I'm trying to think again. I'm trying to think about how to phrase this. It's very much. It's very much a. It's very much a pro. It. It's very much a product of its time.
For my case, I feel like Ranzic's story and the whole thing they're trying to get at, it works a lot better if you just focus in on the story of one man who refuses to get past his own anger and try and ignore all the greater framing stuff.
Right. Likewise, I think Time Force works a lot better as a season if you just see like the whole mutant thing as like a side issue and mostly just if thinking about it from the focus of focusing on the themes of destiny and choosing your own fate. I think it's all a matter of how you do the season and the character.
And while I generally find Time Force to be kind of a middling season for me personally, the character dynamic stuff between Eric, Wes, and Jen is legitimately great, like top tier Ranger stuff.
Right. Anyways, God, we keep doing this thing.
I do feel I have to throw this in real quick. When I was talking about Power Rangers in general and their monsters and, blowing them up, this isn't something I'm routinely trying to demonize the show for doing. It is a fantasy show for children about superheroes fighting evil monsters. I'm just saying there are certain limits to the formula that, do carry certain implications that become more obvious the older you get.
Right. And I think it stands out more in the seasons that try to play in the seasons that are trying to take themselves more seriously, because it's if you are trying to make a season that it's admirable that they are not trying to speak down to their audience and trying to tackle more heavy themes, but with that more serious take comes more, I guess, more scrutiny of the themes and implications.
With very few exceptions, Power Rangers is always going to win with the good guys beating up the bad guys.
Yeah.
That's just part of the formula. I love that formula, but it has its limits, like I said.
Right.
Oh.
Anyways, God, I'm sorry. We have just gone.
Okay.
We're just going.
This was a tangent we had to talk about.
We did.
Because it plays into this episode heavily.
Yes.
Right, we did. Okay, that's fine. Anyways, so after the flashback, we cut to cut to the next day where the Rangers find out that that Master Org and the Mute Orgs are about to sabotage a power plant.
And if I may say, while we never find out exactly how the Mute Orgs got to the past, I do appreciate that their general motivation and goals are very simple and easy to follow.
Right.
They want to come back to the past when Master Org was around and help make a new, darker, and help rewrite the future to make a paradise for orcs of pollution and toxic goo everywhere.
Right.
That makes them good villains. The story's able to use them effectively, but we also don't have to get dragged down trying to explain their whole deal in a limited time.
Right. So the two teams basically split off into groups. So I believe Jen, Alyssa, Lucas, Trip, Max and Danny basically try to okay, so Lucas, Trip, Max, and Danny basically try to shut down the power plant so that the mute orgs can't spread pollution, while hmm, okay,
The team of like Wes, uh, Cole, not Jen.
Nadira and West Cole, Nadira and Ranzic.
Yeah, see, Ranzic needs to get up close to the mute org so he can effectively nullify their mutant parts.
Also, because he's basically the only person strong enough to take to.
Oh, you know what? You're right. That's a point I wanted to bring up. As I said before, the Time Force Rangers never actually beat Ranzic. In the final battle, he was basically a titan who was crushing through them. So, that helps explain why they would want to recruit him for a threat they can't fight. It doesn't feel, arbitrary. And yeah, it also helps explain how the mute orgs, who got their mutant part from Ranzic, are so damn unstoppable.
And yeah,
It also plays into something else that happens in the episode, but again, we will get to that. This sequence in general, the whole sequence in the factory, great stuff. Like I love between the character mainly because of the character interactions and the stunt work. Like you got Jen and Alyssa blasting the putreds. Those are like the first soldiers of this.
I love the way that scene was shot. It was all shadowy, and they had like purple blast going everywhere.
It's great.
And like we see Rangers blasting stuff all the time, but it looked really, really cool this time.
It's there. I think there's just something about the Rangers using weapons in their civilian forms. I think that's the thing that does it.
That helps.
Right.
And there's another bit where Eric tosses his quantum defender at Taylor so she can use it.
Yes.
Calling back to that conversation they had.
Yes.
That was badass. Just badass.
Right.
No way.
I mean, there is also. I forgot to mention that Katie and Taylor are with the two of them fighting off the putreds, and while all that's going on, Wes the remaining four try to take on the mute orgs. So there's a scene
the mute orgs get a sneak attack on Nadira. Which distracts Ranzic long enough for him to get hit in the back. And then Ranzic basically kind of tackles the lot of them and like
he kamikazes himself.
Kind of. I mean, he's still alive, but he destroys their mutant part somehow.
Right.
I mean, to me, the most logical thing would be that he simply absorbed his mutation back out of them, insofar that logic has anything to do with this.
It's Power Rangers.
But that doesn't really fit with what happens later.
It's Power right. It's when it comes to it's Power.
Also, somewhere in the middle of this, the Wild Forces 6th Ranger Merrick shows up.
Yeah, I was gonna say right. At the last post,
Merrick?
I know. I was gonna say, like, that's the one thing that always puzzled me about all this. Where was Merrick when all this was going on?
Merrick
I get his whole
actor busy. What?
I mean, I get his whole vibe as being like the lone wolf of the team, but like it's just you'd think he'd at least be there hanging out with Princess Shayla back at the Animarium. Like,
yeah.
But anyway, I don't know.
With
Maybe
some mute orgs running around being unstoppable, someone would have called him.
Right.
Can they call him? I haven't seen the middle part of Wild Force.
I don't
I
know.
assume
Maybe
they can call him.
I don't know. Maybe he was really busy with his pool game.
You know what? I bet Uncle Phil was in there is the thing.
Right. Right. Maybe. Anyway.
But the scene though was so badass. Seeing Merrick.
Yeah, it was.
But
He was effortlessly cool, even if it like again, where the hell have you been?
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
We could. It's like, where the hell were you? Where the hell were you? When we were getting our asses kicked a day ago? What were you just like? What were you just like sitting in the? What were you just? What was he just like sitting in his pool game? He heard his mover go off and go. Nah, they got this. They'll be fine. Besides, they're not going to. My pool game is more important. I don't know.
So all the Rangers, you know, the mute orgs are just orgs again. So the Rangers all morph in a big fancy group scene like they always do. There's
Right.
a big explosion of colored smoke behind them as they do.
Badass.
And I think it's just a really good fight scene.
It's great. It's
like there's this part where I can't remember who, like a blue ranger and a green ranger grab the guy, or and a might have been a black ranger. Grab the like
it
this
was
one
Max
orc
and Trip.
2 axes. They grab his arms, pull out his axes. The other two other rangers swing from above, catch their axes with the feet, and then drop them on the ground. I think they actually arm themselves with the axes.
Yeah, it's great. It's a great
That's
moment.
creative as hell.
Right. My personal favorite moment from the fight has to be the tag team between Jen and Alyssa, where they're going up against the flying org, and like in a great like I want to say like role reversal. Jen flips Alyssa, who counters the flying org and knocks him down. It's great.
That was great. That was. But my main part is where, you know, Eric, Cole, and West use their battle eyes to finish off.
Right.
That was dope.
Oh wait, I forgot before that. Like that would be my favorite. So the Jen and Alyssa stuff is my favorite moment of the fight. But my favorite stunt personally would probably have to be like the scene where Cole like the flip off of the tower and onto the ground.
Yeah. It was just these episodes are bursting with some excellently choreographed fight scenes.
Right.
Yes.
Right. Like it's right, especially when you consider that again, this is all original footage.
It is. And like I remember back in the Mighty Morphin days when they were still getting used to choreographing, you know, their own monster fight scenes. Good level with you. Half the time I wasn't too impressed.
Right. I don't think that
they did get better over the years.
Right. It took I want to say that the fight choreography was kind of the fight choreography early on in the series was pretty rough, was kind of rough, unpolished, and more slapstick based. But like as with each season, you can see the choreography getting better. You can see the actors becoming more comfortable with the suits and more skilled. You can see
in general the unmorphed fights against the foot soldiers were generally pretty solid. It was when they get like the suit battles against monsters that things got iffy to me. Right.
Actually, it's a case by case thing. So like in some episodes and some seasons, the unmorphed fight scenes are generally just kind of okay, and then the morphed fights are the highlights of the episodes. I want to say starting with I want to say like maybe starting around In Space when Koichi Sakamoto became the stunt coordinator. I forget. Was he always the stunt coordinator for the show?
I couldn't tell you, but for my money, the fight in space between Darkonda and Ecliptor.
Yeah.
That was the first time where I'm watching and I go, dang, they have really stepped up their game from previous seasons.
Right. Right. Okay. I'm looking. Okay. Okay. That's right. Okay. So Koichi came in around the third season of Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. That's that. Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I guess I'm going to level with you. I wasn't super impressed with them there either, but I think we're maybe getting. Look, we'll spend an episode whining about what went wrong with Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, if anything, some other time. But I think we do need to finish up this reinforcements from the future.
Yes, we
Right.
do.
Right. Anyways, the fight ends with with all the Rangers usually all the Rangers combining their weapons to defeat the Mute Orgs. They're
It's a satisfying beating up the bad guys thing.
Right.
Yeah.
Later on,
Later
on, they go back to the power plant where they left Nadira and Ranzic to discover that not only is Ranzic alive, but he's human again.
And by again, I guess for the first time. What?
Yes.
This is the weird thing because depending on how you frame the mutation, and again, Time Force kind of flip-flops on it a lot, this can read as being perfectly, I guess, banal or as really, really messed up.
Yeah. You know, I mean, I can see it from both angles, but I just prefer to see if it. I'm going to assume that this was done in good faith, so that the character could have a happy ending as a conclusion to a story arc.
Yeah, like honestly, the main if we're giving this as much focus as it is, it's only because it would feel disingenuous not to. You know?
Yeah. I mean, the conversation needed to be had.
Like whether or not it ruins the episode for us personally, it has to be acknowledged.
Right. And I think we did an adequate job of at least having that conversation.
There are probably people who can talk about it a lot better than I can, but
oh yeah, for sure.
As long as we get anyone else talking, if we can, that's all we can do, I guess.
Right. So the episode actually, there's so after the final battle, there's actually a pretty amusing epilogue where the Rangers celebrate their victory at the Animarium with a party.
It is a really sweet scene.
It is.
It was. Yeah.
And apparently Lucas and Nadira are back together.
Apparently.
Apparently.
Hey, good on them. It'll probably be a healthier relationship this time.
Yeah.
Lucas isn't terrified out of his wits now.
Well,
right.
Hey, anything can happen in the Power Ranger universe.
He's terrified. He's terrified in that. He's terrified in the meet the parents kind of terror. Not, oh my God, your dad's an evil tyrant who whooped my ass and could probably do it again.
Yes.
Okay. For the very brief context for those unfamiliar, there was an episode late in Time Force where Lucas writes a poem to his car or something. He accidentally drops it. Nadira picks it up, thinks that Lucas is in love with her, and decides to start dating him. And Ranzic, it doesn't like it, but he's just trying to be the most supportive dad in the world. It is probably one of the very best episodes of Power Rangers I've ever seen. Go watch it.
Funniest.
Yeah, it's a tie between either that or Lovesick Rangers as the funniest. Okay, either that Lovesick Rangers or Undercover Rangers is like the funniest episodes of that season. Like I mean, yeah, we talk a lot about how serious and mature Time Force is, but again, this is still a children's show, so there are some comparatively lighter and more humorous episodes.
The monster is like a lizard or maybe a chameleon guy, and Ranzic keeps pulling on. Like he can't keep up with what Ranzic wants at any given second, so Ranzic keeps just shutting him up by pulling on his tongue. It's great.
Yeah. There's another bit in like the epilogue where Danny is arm wrestling with Katie. Okay, we didn't touch on it, but the Time Force Rangers have powers or abilities, and Katie has super strength.
Well, like they don't. It's not like later seasons where they have civilian powers. Everyone has their own special superpower. Trip can read minds because he's an alien. We never actually get an explanation as to why Katie's super strong. She's just super strong.
Right.
And Danny, the Wild Force Team Muscle, is trying his best. And Trip's just like, Katie, just beat him already. This is sad. And she, of course, she flips his arm so hard that he ends up going flying off to the floor.
Oh, it's great.
So I want to state this two-parter's good points because there are so very many of them. There's a lot of good inter-team character interactions. Both teams feel vital to the plot. I cannot overstate the choreography of the fights.
Oh yeah.
The plot is basic, but it gets the job done. It allows for a bunch of fun interactions. The writing's pretty good overall. That's not always a guarantee with Power Rangers, but the writing,
especially the crossovers, like right.
And like this, the little interactions as Cole excited to learn that there are other Power Rangers. Taylor warming up to Eric while Eric learns to when I say learns to respect Taylor, it wasn't an arc or something. He didn't have to learn something. It's just, he warmed up to her too, and they had a cute little bit of chemistry.
Right. Taylor being it's basically Taylor being a tsundere with Eric. which is funny, which is kind of fitting since Eric himself basically acts like a tsundere for the majority of Time Force.
Yeah, that is distressingly true. and like this would probably land easily as the very best crossover Power Rangers has ever done, if not for the glaring black mark implications about Ranzic's mutations.
Yeah.
And like how bad that is going to vary from a person to person.
Right.
Maybe it's something you have to cringe through, or maybe it's bothersome to the point that it just outright ruins everything else. And that's
which is understandable. But if you can, it's personally one of my favorites, even with the unfortunate implications. But I guess if you are able to look past that, and if that doesn't ruin it for you, it's a good one. It's a good one. I think you'll enjoy it if you are able to get past that.
And if you're not, hey, we're not judging you for it. We get it.
Hey, yeah. I mean, if for nothing else, it is certainly one of the. I mean, in a season that is in a season that I'd say is full of a lot of great moments and episodes, I would definitely count this as one of them.
While I haven't finished Wild Force yet, yeah, I can more or less agree with that. There are definitely things I've seen that are just wow.
Yeah.
Like not even just the crossover stuff. There's another crossover in this season we'll get to one day. It's great.
We will. We absolutely will. We may depending on how things shake. We may actually talk about we may end up talking about 2 more episodes from this season, depending on how things shake out.
Well,
But
I know what the one is. What's the other one?
Unfinished Business,
Unfinished. You know what?
episode 27.
I don't think I'm familiar.
Okay, I think it takes place like 2 episodes after Reinforcements from the Future Part 2. Right, and but okay, that one's a maybe, but we will almost assuredly be talking about the other team up, Forever Red.
Hell yeah, best considered. This is widely considered the best team up of Power Rangers ever.
Oh, right. That's why you wanted to talk about Unfinished Business, because ABC. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. I guess since you brought it up, I figured that we could. I brought up Unfinished Business since that was the first episode. Since that is technically the start of the beginning of the Disney era, as it was the first episode of Power Rangers, the first new episode of Power Rangers to air on ABC. Yeah. Okay. I suppose I should kind of elaborate on that a bit. So Wild Force. Wild Force was the Wild Force. Is considered like a transition series. Wild Force is a transitional season. So like a transition from the series. Yes.
Go ahead.
Basically, so Power Rangers from its first season was owned by Saban, and I don't really know the behind the scenes history of Saban that well, but basically they were selling off a bunch of their properties around this time, and a couple of them, notably Power Rangers and Digimon, got picked up by Disney.
Yes.
2001, yes.
Yes.
And as we covered back in the Ninja Storm episode, Disney was more or less going to end the show and just run syndicated reruns for a while. They convinced the Power Rangers production convinced Disney to let them keep going by moving to New Zealand, where it would be cheaper to produce and film and all that. Now, so there is some argument between certain people. That sounds mean. There's some argument over whether Wild Force should count as a Saban season or a Disney season.
Both. I describe it as both, kind of loosely.
For my money, I'm firmly in the camp that it's a Saban season.
Yeah.
While it's true that there's at least one plot point that would not have gotten through if not for the chaos of transition. Overall, it feels like it's written, it's staged a lot more like what you'd get out of Lightspeed Rescue and Wild Force than what you got out of Ninja Storm and Dino Thunder.
Yeah,
the difference in feel between Wild Force and Ninja Storm is so utterly strong that I just have a hard time putting Wild Force on the Disney side of that line, you know?
Yeah, no. I only say technically because I only say the last third of Wild. I only count Wild Force as I say technically when I say Wild Force is the last third of Wild Force is the beginning of the Disney era, since that was when the show debuted on not Disney Channel, on ABC Family, but Ninja Storm is the proper start of the Disney era of Power Rangers.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Because as we said, the first half of Wild Force, most of Wild Force aired on Fox Kids, and then when that got on Fox Kids, Fox Family, and then that got rebranded as ABC Family later on in 2002.
Oh, I remember that.
Right.
Actually, shoot, I think I had HBO Family for a while that I was watching it on.
Yeah.
Jetix was weird.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. It was. Isn't that? Yeah. Jetix was weird.
That was before they changed to Disney XD.
Oh, you're right. This wasn't Jetix. Didn't happen for another couple years, but like there were certain shows that would still air on Disney, but also air on what I had as HBO Family. Beyblade was one of them, I think. I don't get how these things work sometimes.
Syndication is weird like that.
Mm-hmm.
There are some. I'm pretty sure like there were some syndication just weird like that. Some people watch Power Rangers. Some people just watch the show as it it's weird because like when Disney bought it, there were some seasons that first aired the episodes on ABC Family, and then they did the rerun. Then they did reruns on Jetix or ABC or the ABC Kids block. It gets weird. It was. I mean, it was not. It was nice having the show on multiple places, but it did get. But sometimes it gets a little confusing.
And of course, now we just stream stuff. So
Right.
anyway, is there anything we missed about this episode?
Not really. No.
I'm looking through my notes, but I think we got everything.
Yeah, I think we got everything here. So besides the weird mutant implications, this was a top-notch crossover.
Yeah, good. It's a good one.
A good crossover. Not awesome fight scenes, of course.
Yeah, I think we pretty much covered. We've covered our thoughts on the episodes overall.
Yes, we have.
Although before we wrap up, we could. This is like a quick rapid fire segment where we just cover where we list stories that aren't really big enough to cover as full topics of the show, but I feel are just worth mentioning. So
Okay.
as of last Friday, the entirety of Ninja Storm is now available on the official Power Rangers YouTube channel, and I believe starting this Friday they will start uploading weekly episodes of SPD.
Nice.
Yeah, that's about it. That's about it as far as rapid fire stuff goes.
Hey, if anyone was interested in this podcast but somehow wasn't keeping up with that, now you know.
Yes.
We aim to help.
Yes. We're not in. So, I guess the general plan for the next episode is we will try to either like do something at the end, like do a recap show after Power Week, which is also the weekend where Power Morphicon happen. When Power Morphicon occurs, if there is any major news, any significant news or whatnot at Power Morphicon, we will obviously touch on that. But if not, and there's no major headlines, we might just shuttle off until next month and possibly do another, I guess, retrospective on unfinished business in September. We'll see how. We'll see.
For my money, we have been gone for a little bit, and this has been pretty fun. If none of us have anything keeping us back next week, why don't we get together and just talk about Forever Red?
Well, I was hoping to do it in October or whatnot, since the episode aired in October, like that sort of thing.
I get that, but we have kind of been teasing it this entire episode.
Yeah, we have.
Yeah, point taken. Actually, no. Yeah, we could. I mean, it's Power. What? Sure, why not? Why not? It's Power Month. There's not a whole lot of there's not going to be a whole lot to talk about for a while. So what the hell? Next week.
And hopefully by the time October comes around, we'll have more Dino Fury episodes. We will hopefully have more information on the next season. I say we just make use of the time we have now and just kind of rewind a little bit.
Sure. Let's go for it. Next week or whenever we come back, we will give our full thoughts on Forever Red.
Oh boy, I just really love that episode. Any excuse I have to watch it is a good one.
Yeah, it's a goodie, and we're forewarning you now. We are probably going to spend an hour or two gushing over it. So you have that to look forward to.
Yeah. Oh, well, guess we have covered everything. Ladies and gentlemen, that's going to be it for episode 20 of this podcast. And I hope you guys enjoyed this. Sorry we've been away for so long. We have personal issues, personal things we need to wrap it all up with.
I accept no responsibility.
Of
Yes.
course. Of course.
And all that. So if you guys like this episode and this podcast, please leave a like, comment, subscribe, turn on the bell icon to get notified every time I upload a new video or when I go live. Yes, next week we are gonna do a whenever we come back.
Well, we're the plan is to do it. I think we should be. We will either this week or whenever, or soon after next Monday.
Yes. Yes.
To the best of our knowledge, there's nothing stopping us from having a show next Monday. Some might happen. We'll let you all know. Or someone will. Dante, that's your job. You do that.
Right.
Yes, that is my job. And also, yes, we will let y'all know what's going on. And if we do decide to take another hiatus, we will certainly let y'all know. So for all of us here in this podcast, until we see y'all again next time, may the power
protect you.
Always. See y'all next time. Bye-bye.
Till next time.
Later.